A very good morning to everyone who's listening to this webinar. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker with us today, Dr. Manimuthu Arunmozhi, who's going to give his tech talk on data-driven artificial intelligence. Our speaker, Dr. Manimuthu Arunmozhi, sir, is a research fellow in the field of autonomous vehicle security at Energy Research Institute, Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. He is a doctorate from Anna University in Electrical Engineering. His research work is based on the energy-aware automation for home area networks, smart grid, and autonomous self-reconfigurable robotic platforms using machine learning algorithms and cloud infrastructure. He's received many funded projects and patents as well, and he has published many papers in reputed referee journals. He's a multifaceted person, expertised in many fields such as AI, cloud computing, smart grid, machine learning, IoT, and power systems. It's a great pleasure, sir, and I really appreciate your time and efforts. I welcome you to deliver your talk to our faculties and students who are listening to you in YouTube link, sir. I hand over the session to you. Welcome you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Bulavika. And it's been a great honor for me to be present in this such a huge platform. And I like to thank the management of SRM IST for inviting me to present my expertise among different versatile and different stream of students. And I hope you're going to enjoy this presentation. And at least in some way, it will be helpful for your career aspects as well. And so, as you know, this today's topic I'm going to discuss with you is about AI and machine learning in a data-driven decision-making perspective, and a lot of applications we are going to see, and how these things are taken from different time period, and we are just going to see what all the application perspective of using AI and machine learning, and how these applications are using in our day-to-day life, and what are all the security schemes you just require for making this to happen in a very successful way, and also you just need to see what kind of additional safety measures you are going to provide for your design. So in this way, I have planned this entire session of AI and machine learning, and so this is my PPT, and I am just going to share with you all. So now my PPT is visible, right? Okay, I'll just quickly go through the session. I have planned this session with an overview of giving a brief introduction of how this AI and security things are going to work together, and what are all the different perspectives you have in making these different technologies to be working together. And I also briefly explaining you about security issues, like what are all the things you're going to put into your system, and what can you expect from the outside world to break your system in a way of cybersecurity. And I am going to briefly explain you about the threat models we have figured it out, and what are the threat models you have for the machine learning things and the artificial intelligence things, and how you are going to provide a complete platform package of threat models so that you can provide some countermeasures whenever you find such a threat into your system. And also, I'll be briefing about some application areas of AI and ML, and I'm just going to give a brief introduction of real-time examples with respect to artificial intelligence in an autonomous car, or whatever the autonomous vehicles in terms of cars, two-wheelers, mobiles, and different machineries in industries, which are all performing its own decisions, which are all performing its own task on its own way. And finally, I'm just giving a brief overview of implications of these AI and machine learning in a real time with real time examples. So this is the overall agenda of this program, and so as I said in the introduction, we are going to see about the current version of AI, what are all the tools involved in AI, what are all the algorithms available for different AIs and different machine learning algorithms, and there are a lot of different smart definitions. It's not like a definition, it's about the user perspective. If I am a user of AI, in my perspective, I will be defining a definition for AI, and if you are a user or if you are a designer, in your perspective, you'll be coming up with your own definitions. So in that, while different eminent personalities working in the crypto security, network security, AI will be giving their own definitions on platforms of different applications. And I'm just going to brief you about those things and some real-time implications. So straight away, if you're seeing about the uh, AI as an overview, obviously you will be having a big data perspectives, and it will be closely aligned with the growing economy of different countries. So as an economist, advertisement provides most of the information about the recent ongoings of projects in different countries. And this is an overview of what actually happening in May 6, 2017 in China or some regions in China. They have a technology that is closely associated with AI perspective, and they are combining it with data, and they are trying to combine these two different domains to address some specific innovative challenges. That's why we just transforming the data into our models and transporting these models into real-time applications. So this innovation challenge can be of anything. You can address this with autonomous systems like autonomous vehicles, or it can go with the smart grid or energy sector, and even you can go with healthcare sector of medical health issues or biomedical or whatever the things. Basically, the underlying perspective is that you are having an AI system which is going to perform its task, going to take its own decision, and of course, it will be having different smart sensors, actuators, and the embedded devices into it, where some of these devices can be deriving you lots and lots of data. So these data will be used in a quality way, so that you can extract the quality information from these data and process these with an AI algorithm for an innovative approach of addressing a particular specific application depends on your stream. So, in our case, we are just going to see about the autonomous vehicles and how these new technologies and data-driven approaches helpful for the autonomous vehicle to take some decisions in real time once it is deployed in an environment. How this is going to take the decision of whether it can go in this speed range, or if you find some pedestrians on the way, how it is going to avoid these pedestrians and traffic light signaling. So, a lot of technologies are also there. So this data is going to be a major thing in providing some decisions while your system is on road or while the application is on run. So as I said before, these are some of the standardizations or the leverage of the AI in uh, China, Korea, and Japan. And as you can see, in 2013, the index of this is almost get from 2013 it is almost getting increasing to 88% right now. So as you can imagine, it is $7.2 billion USD in 2012, and now the revenue has increased to 23.7%, 23.7 billion in 2017. So all these data are way back in 2017. And in this way, you can definitely have an overview of how this can be forecasted in 2021 right now. So this is how the big data is transforming the world of automation, AI, and machine learning. So wherever you find some data, you just try to model it for a different application perspective. It can be of construction, distribution, utilization, or energy sectors, or whatever the application scenario, you will be definitely having a data generating unit. So as simple as that, the basic example is our mobile phone. So you will be having a mobile phone. Obviously, you will be having a data connections, and you will be using your mobile for different applications. You may be using it for WhatsApp, Gmail, Instagram, Facebook, and a lot of social media apps and a lot of personalized apps. So you will be giving your personalized data as well, and also receiving their own customized informations for your own wellness as well. So all these data are getting exchanged instantly for every instant of time. So by this time, while I was speaking to you, almost 1.3 trillions of data are getting exchanged in WhatsApp. That is a recent statistic. And also, you can see these platforms are way bigger than our expectations. This may be having a specific data centers which will be running 24 by 7 all the time, and a lot of scientists who are working on these data for future extraction, and these data can be utilized for our benefits. It can be giving you real-time updates on clouds, real-time update on weather, rain, sun, real-time update on traffic jams or traffic scenarios. In of course, since India is in the surge of the second wave of COVID-19, you can also see, you can also use these apps to get the data about the real-time updates of COVID situation in and around your region. So this is how these data are handled effectively by these smart applications for decision making. And uh, some of these data, I mean, some of these applications will be giving you the decision perspective, not the decision itself. And as a user, it is your understanding to go through which of these data can be reliable and which of these data can be trusted in real time. And of course, it is about the customer and also the user to understand and study these data and use these data wisely. So this is the actual strategy and actual perspective of utilizing this data for effective construction of different models in real time. So as I say, data, we do have two different variants of data. It can be of a public data where everyone can access to those data, and it also be having a private data where some of the confidential information about your age, your mobile numbers, and a lot of this. Right? You will be having a matrix of data which can be saved as a confidential one. Your bank passport, bank passcodes, and everything. So this categories comes under private data, and of course, based on the application scenarios, you will be having a public data which can be available to all the public users available for that particular platform. So basically, the calculation is this: lot of weightages will be given to the private data rather than going with the public data. So as soon as you give the public data, as soon as you utilize your public data with the private data, this application providers or the uh, and these providers will makes you to understand the private data usages will be like this. So you are going to use this as an agreement perspective. So you are going to sign an agreement for using your data for this public forum, which can also be transferred anywhere else. So it's up to the customer and user to choose which application you require based on your requirement. So as I said, big data is a pool of data where social platforms are include, people are include, public institutions are include, IT infrastructure and platforms are introduced, and all these are clubbed together. And based on the application perspective, these data are getting extracted and utilized. So this is an overview of how these data are getting generated from different platforms, and how these data are mapped to the different applications, and it's up to the end user and also the application developer to see how these data can be projected in an effective way, so that uh, it can extract the very minute details and also the futures for betterment of human lifestyle. So this is an overview of intelligent IT infrastructure, where it combines the ICPM and also the AI. And it also includes IoT based system. It also has big data. It also has AI. So this is open end. You can have any kind of application starting from smart factory to autonomous vehicles. It can include health sector, energy sector, and it again depends on the application centric. But as a network security engineer, our role is to ensure this communication between the user devices and the applications are protected from any network attacks or malwares or cyber security threats. So we have different end devices in the middle, where you will be having network connection for transporting your data from your network and also to the service provider. So this is how the transition happens. You will be having a data clustering environment, and data clustering environment will be transferring the data to a local host, and this local host will save, process, and also execute this data to an application service provider. Then the application service provider, based on his requirements and criteria, will be evaluating your data and projecting it to the users. So this is how the customer-centric approach is happening between an application developer and also the end user. So our objective is, in the middle, you'll be having an AI platform, machine learning algorithms to train your data. And of course, all these data are coming under the different analytical platforms where we call it as big data analytics. And this is how the system performs with your data. So, like I said, different eminent persons who are all working in different universities, different labs, and different companies, they have proposed their own definition of AI, and this is not a standardized one. And as you can see, in the year of 1955 itself, someone have used the artificial intelligence. So, this is how the evolution of AI is happening over the last 60 to 65 years. So in the beginning, we just working on the simulation of different platforms and try to understand the complexity involved in simulating the platforms. And once you are much familiar with the simulation environment, the user need to understand how this simulation environment can outperform the operations we require. Then once these operations are getting executed, you just need a criteria to understand a different setup of rules and setup of parameters from these functionalities. So all these are altogether performs a data-oriented approach for improvising your actual simulation model. It's like a self-improvement of model, whatever you design, with the actual results you yourself obtain from the simulation environment itself. So it's a training and analysis of your entire simulation thing, and over a period of time, you will be getting a wide range of data, and with these data, you can able to futuristically analyze different perspective of simulation models. So this is how the model is being trained over a period of time. Let's say if your model is trained for n number of times. So for each time your model will be delivering some amount of data. So it is up to the designer and also the user to understand how quality these data are and what kind of informations we can extract from these data over a period of n iterations. And with these iterations, you're going to feed the entire system with the same amount of data, so that at the end, your model doesn't need your help to perform its operation. It can be a standalone system where it can perform, orchestrate, and execute the operation by its own. It's very generic, and it depends on the platform you develop the simulation model, and it is associated with whatever the application scenario you're associating your model. So it's very generic. So, but everywhere the same principle applies, and everywhere the same performance is getting happening from training your model to the distribution of decision analysis. So as I said, AI is performing different versatility based on different applications, and we have classified AI in different categories. One is the weak methods in AI and strong methods in AI. Of course, uh, none of the AI algorithm is weak, and none of the AI algorithm is much more stronger than the one. But it again depends on uh, the the steps you make into progress, the information extraction procedures you have, and also the amount of computation capability your method is having, and the type of application you are going to use your AI algorithm. So we have categorized this as a primitive stage, and don't rely on this as a weak one, this as a strong one. It depends on the application you choose. You just understand what it is actually happening with AI. So if you are going with the biological sciences or healthcare systems, of course, the the information extraction requires human trials. And if you are going with an animal research, you will also require the data from animal research behaviors. So in those cases, the data extraction procedures will be much more complex than you trying with an actual hardware itself. So in that way, it can be categorized as a weak one. And if you're training and executing with an actual hardware without any human trials or without any biological sciences, then of course those things will be accumulated where those things can be categorized into strong methods of AI. But of course, it's again depends on the user perspective of how effectively you're utilizing this AI model to program your model, train your scenarios, and get the outputs at an early stage. So, different terminologies involved in AI includes artificial narrow intelligence, artificial general intelligence, artificial super intelligence. So, as an example of artificial narrow intelligence, it's a very straightforward method. You're just doing the application based on your requirement. That is, each step is accountable for ANI. But artificial general intelligence is applicable to any problem rather than it doesn't include human intelligence alone. It's again about the training of your algorithm. It's about the amount of features you extracted during your training, and altogether everything is getting combined at the end so that it can perform and can be applied to any kind of applications that involves these kind of scenarios. And artificial super intelligence. Most of the people have seen the movie Avengers Ultron, Age of Ultron. So we categorize this Ultron as a super intelligence scheme, where you will be training an actual human behavioral system, and in the absence of your knowledge, it can outperforms your super models. So this is how the artificial super intelligence schemes have been categorized. And now most of the tech giants are trying to bring up the super intelligence in a way like they are building up their quantum computing scenario, and they are just building up a tera peta amount of data. Some may be exploring about different black hole combination of cyber security, trying to bring more kind of crypto algorithms for making this supercomputer uh, irresistible to any kind of vulnerabilities. So that kind of chances and challenges are there while you're trying to simulate and trying to bring up or trying to transform the AGI into ASI. But of course, anything is possible in this technology world, and of course, you can expect this ASI will be available soon for our use itself. Let's say there is an example like once there is a person who is riding a cycle over a period of time, and then he thought of transforming a cycle into a four wheeler. Then imagined, okay, why can't I drive? What if I am not in the driver's seat? If the car can drive itself. So then the Tesla came, and it proved that this can also be possible. So anything is possible in this today's scenario. So you can expect the AI to be available in the market with super intelligence in near future. So till now we have a brief introduction of what is AI, different classifications of AI, and how big data is benefiting the AI. So now I'm going to briefly explaining about the other dimension of other version of AI, where it involves a lot of safety and security metrics and standards for protecting your network. So we call it as cybersecurity, and basically the cybersecurity involves data and also the devices involved in generating this data, and you are just going to provide a security framework or safety standards for your model to be versatile from any kind of vulnerabilities available during different periods of time. So recent trend shows on an average of 61% of data breaches are happening in companies that is having an accountable range of 1,000 employees. And let's say if the breach is happening in Google, where it has around millions of employees all over the world. So such a huge data breach can also be possible. But how this Google is securing uh, these data breaches. So of course they are just providing more funds. They are allocating more funds to protect their network from any kind of cyber attacks. And recently, Bloomberg have showed a lot of companies in India are also be hacked by different persons from Iran, Israel, and even few of the companies in Tamil Nadu also have faced this kind of data breaches in 2018, 19 or this period. So everywhere it is happening, but it again uh, it depends on what quality content these data breaches have looted from these companies. So let's say for an example, if our other data is being in the black market, so all your information is available to an open environment. So that's why government of India is making a huge amount of funds for protecting the other data from any kind of vulnerability. So sooner or later, this vulnerability schemes or cybersecurity models need to be frequently updated, and it should be secured all the time. So we just require this kind of scenario is already been there, and having this in mind, you've always been ready to protect your network. So areas of cybersecurity involves about different devices involved in generating data. Obviously, it will be having a centralized computer network or a kind of an OS-based system, and of course, you will be having a network server for getting the network connection between your device as well as from service provider. Then in some cases, you may be using mobile devices. It can be a laptop. It can also be for mobile phones or tablets or whatever this thing. But right, in recent perspective, uh, you are completely relying on, you're also been using your vehicle as one of the uh, most common platform for exchanging exchanging information via Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and also uh, you will be frequently using different apps that have been available in different uh, transportation platforms like Ola, Uber. So while you're using their application while you're traveling in the car, you should be aware of these kind of cyber threat models can be possible once you make your data available to their server. So this authorization is provided by you to use your data. So while you give some agreement licensing or while you go for utilizing some third-party app, just try to understand what is given in their agreement and then click OK. So this is how an unauthorized access to your data can be avoided cautiously. So likewise, as I said, we do have a wide variety of definitions based on uh, the user perspective and for the cyber attack and cyber security. And all these definitions involves a particular network connected system, and different users will be available for that particular system. And this system will be generating huge amount of data. So the attack surface can be of anything. It can be the user, it can be the application, or it can be a software service provider, or it can be on the hardware itself. So cyber attack can happen at any of these attack vectors. The entry point can be of anything. So as a company, it's my duty to ensure your entire network and your entire devices and your users are completely authorized. So according to Statistica, it's a versatile company which always provides the statistic information about uh, different application-centric data perspective. And they have analyzed and gave an analysis on device connections. And they are expecting about 75 billion connected devices are going to be online by 2025. So let's imagine in our home, you will be having 3 to 4 smartphones, and all these smartphones will be connected with, will be provided with some data connections. So it is generating data all the time. So this is how the data are getting connected together. Either it can be a common channel of hub, or it can be a router where different end users are getting connected with their network IP and with their authorized passwords. So any vulnerability can happen to any of these devices once this authorization is open to the outside world. So we have categorized this cybersecurity and also the network vulnerability into different angulations. And once your system needs to be protected from any kind of cyber vulnerability, then you just need to identify what it is happening, what's happening behind the screen, what's happening for your application. So once you identify your threat, then you just need to find a perfect solution to protect your system. Then if you are unable to protect your system, then at least you should say the service provider or the application provider to understand what is actually happening into your system. So it's kind of detecting the malware based on the user requirements. So once you are able to detect something uh, unusual into your system, then you can say to your immediate to understand how this thing is happening and what is actually happening into your system and what if the data can be available to the open market. So then a lot of people will be helping you to protect your systems. There will be a network service manager for your enterprise. There can be a service administrator for your network itself. So they will be trying to put more number of security patches to protect your network in terms of firewalls, in terms of security software, and they can also try to ensure the privacy of your system by providing some additional security schemes like password encryption, key encryption, fingerprint sensors, and even in a highly reputed companies, they are following this setup to ensure their data are secure. And the topmost companies are in the US are also performing an iris scan for logging into their network. Yeah. So this is how the setup is working right now. So uh, in turn, this shows your data is so much valuable to the different application service providers. So these service providers are taking much more efforts to protect your data. So why can't you? So just ensure this kind of setup is available into your system all the time. So we have categorized this network vulnerability entry points into different sections. This can be of lack of management path. It can be of weak passwords. It can be of uh, non-updation of firewall protections and a lot of things. That these are all very limited, and we have a lot of other categories also that is available for that can lead to network vulnerabilities. And so we are going to see some of these as well in coming slides. So once you understand the vulnerability, how you are going to access the vulnerability and provide some solution to these vulnerabilities. So we have different vulnerability schemes, and we have framed these schemes based on where it is happening. So if it is happening inside your network, then it comes under the category of internal assessment. And if it is actually happening in the network, then wireless assessment will be there. Then if it is happening based on the user application and the software itself, then application database and network service administrator, network servers, and those people will come into place, and they will be working together to understand this vulnerability, and they will provide some countermeasures for protecting your system from this kind of vulnerabilities in future. So what if the data breach happen within these things are happening? It's open. That's all. Your data is available in the market, and anything may happen. So that's why a lot of companies are investing huge amount of money for protecting your data for their wellness as well as your uh, user experience. So cyber threats can be happening at any time, and a lot of methods include spamming, identity theft, phishing attacks, spyware, denial of service, ransomware, and right in in the year 2013 to 16, large enterprise. I don't want to mention the name. There is a large enterprise in Germany, and also they are having uh, a huge outlet in US, and they have a ransomware attack. They had a ransomware attack, and the company had its franchise all over the world. So the data center was attacked by a group of hackers from country like Australia. I don't remember the country. So the data from people is spread all over the world from their outlets, and all these data are available in the black market. So anything uh, available in the black market, the user can the market vendors can do anything with your data. Such a crucial thing happened using this ransomware attack on a large scale enterprise system. So consider the same situation is happening in a small and medium enterprise like the units available in Tamil Nadu or nearby your region. So at least if there is a data center or if there are a huge amount of data getting generated from different electronic embedded devices, then there should be a proper protection to protect your network. So security measures for protection includes you can provide access control, and you can also provide some additional safety and security measures in addition to password, keyword, key pairs, and these are some of the primitive measures we can provide for protecting your network. So this is a cybersecurity map which we propose, which we have in Singapore, where it includes the standards, safety measures, and companies involved in developing these standards, and also the companies involved in different applications, etc. So you can see we framed this startup map, and it includes network security. It also includes identity management. It has versatile application areas. It also has a lot of software security developers for data security, cloud security, and also it includes a lot of risk and compliances available in the global environment. So we call it as ICE 71, and it includes whatever the applications you can expect in near future also. It has a provision to be adapted in an autonomous vehicles. It has the ability to be adapted in an energy sector. It has provisions to support biological sciences and healthcare industries. And all these applications have this kind of setup. You will be having a software developer, you will be having a network security support, and altogether everything will be combined and deployed into an actual hardware, which will also be secured enough to be processing or to be handling your data. So this is how this cybersecurity startup map has been framed by Singapore. Likewise, each and every country around the world will be having this kind of cybersecurity startup map, and based on their capacity, funding, and based on their application scenarios, they have categorized everything. So our understanding should be in this way. You will be having you will be able to, you must be able to provide the security schemes for the software, tools, and also the users. So that is the basic underlying criteria to be in mind while you are developing something like this. So, like I said, you will be having a cybersecurity attacks, and uh, the system needs to provide some countermeasures. So, before providing some countermeasures for your system needs to understand what kind of vulnerability it is having now. So, we have categorized the different types of vulnerability assessment schemes. It can be of a host assessment. It can be of network and wireless assessment. It can start from database assessment, and it can also be from the application itself. So based on these assessment schemes, you can able to understand what actual vulnerability your system is facing up, and what can you expect from these vulnerabilities. Either it can be of software failure or hardware failure. It can also be done for your data. It can be of private data or public data or any kind of confidential data which is much more required during that period of time. So these are all basic classification or basic type of understanding your vulnerability, and the entry point can be of any kind of devices, networks, or whatever the thing, whatever the embedded components you use. So there is a framework proposed by NIST, and most of you people are familiar with the NIST, right? And they have given the cybersecurity framework, and this framework helps us to identify, it helps us to protect, detect, respond, and recover our system from any kind of vulnerabilities. If you are able to identify the cybersecurity vulnerability, it can start from asset management, and also it also provides some security risk management. And once every sequential steps are followed, you will be able to recover your system to some extent. That if your system is highly critical, your system is much more vulnerable, then recovery will be very less. Recovery chance of recovery will be very less. This is how the setup works, and you will be having different types of vulnerabilities in your system. And then now you are going to model the threat. So you know what actually the threat is, and how your system is made to be vulnerable. Then you are just going to train your system to avoid such kind of vulnerabilities in near future. So this is the sequential steps you need to follow for modeling your threat. So you just need to define the objectives. What is the actual threat? So then you are going to see about the threat scope. If the threat is not there, so what can be the possibilities? If the threat is already available in the thing, then how you are going to provide some countermeasures? It can be starts from the infrastructure, or it can start from the hardware or software or security patches or the service provider entries. So those kind of technical scope you just need to figure it out. Then you go with the application decomposition, then threat analysis. So obviously, doing the threat analysis, you will be having a clear picture of what kind of breaches happened inside your system. Then, based on these breaches, you're just going to do some vulnerability and weakness analysis. And after all these sequential steps of 1 to 5, you will be having your attack modeling, then the risk analysis. So attack modeling in the sense, if the same threat is happening inside your system from different sources, how your system is providing some countermeasures based on your training analysis happening from step 1 to 5. So if that is the scope for the attack modeling, then obviously your system will be much more outrunning the performance of such kind of vulnerabilities at any point of time. But if that is the attack, if the attack modeling is again able to breach your system, then you just go to you just need to repeat the steps from 1 to 5 and make it robust to any kind of vulnerability happening from same entry point or same kind of attack models. So this is how the sequential steps are getting performed for modeling your threat, and the analysis includes this kind of steps, and the uh, output from these steps will be stored in the local database for any kind of references at any point of time. So this data will be on hold for all the time and used as a reference model. And yes, of course, this is actual reference models you will be always having in hand, so that whenever this kind of threat is happening inside the system, and if your system is able to identify this is the actual vulnerability which is already happened into your system, then you go and check the database for providing some countermeasures. There is nothing to additionally rather than going straight away for any kind of vulnerabilities which is already happened in the network. So before going to the vulnerability assessment or the classifications or threat modeling, We just need to see what kind of domains involved in vulnerability assessment. So we just need to see and establish what kind of phase your vulnerability assessment is happening up. So if that is a closed domain, you will be having a driver phase, and you will be having a profile phase where the software and the hardware things come in together. Then there will be a risk mitigation phase where you'll be providing some countermeasures to your system. This is a closed domain vulnerability assessment. And likewise, you will also be having open domain vulnerability assessment where different third-party softwares, different service providers will be coming into picture, and the sequential steps will also be there. But in addition to this, you will be having additional security patches. But most of the companies don't rely on closed domain vulnerability assessment because they don't have the, I mean, some of the companies, but most of the companies, they don't have the capability to access the system with their own software. They will purchase some additional software from different third-party service providers or different cybersecurity assessment tools, and so that they are going to open their data and open their vulnerability risk management scheme to the outside world. But those things are also be trusted outside world. So in that case, it can be an open domain vulnerability assessment, but always these sequential steps of 1 to 8 will be performed in open domain vulnerability assessment as well. So these are some of the types of cyber attacks. You'll be having malware, phishing, password attacks, denial of service attacks, rogue software. But wherever you go, just need to provide some authorization so that the authorization needs to be obtained from the user and also the customer-centric endpoints and also from the service providers. Then your system is somewhat extended to be safe. So these are some of the potential solutions to mitigate cyber risk security. And there are a lot of security approaches, and it again depends on different use cases available for such kind of attacks. So if there is a use case for vehicle network, or if there is a use case for energy sector, then this use cases will be modeled and framed as a references for all kind of use cases which is facing same kind of vulnerability at a different time period. And so risk mitigation policies are framed in such a way that if a company is facing a new cyber attack or a new kind of network vulnerability, then this policy will be in place so that this new kind of vulnerability available from different market risks or different industries will be modeled and saved as a reference for all kind of all kind of industries available or manufacturing the same kind of process, so that it will be a mutual help to different industries working on same kind of platforms. So we have modeled the cyber attacks on different networks. First, we just modeled it if it is happening in sensor networks, and if it is happening in cameras, what is the countermeasures we can provide, and what kind of outskirt you are going to face because of the cyber attack, and what kind of worst case scenarios these cameras can perform. Similar way, if there is a GPS attack, so if you are if you are driving a car and you are solely dependent on the GPS system available in the car, and if you are not aware of the route, if the GPS is mapped or attacked by any cyber threat models, it can map the location of your GPS coordinates to anywhere else, to a remote location or an unknown place. Then such kind of attacks may lead to be much more vulnerable to the users. So this is how the cyber attacks happen in the GPS, and this is the worst case scenario already been happened to most of the people in developed countries while they were driving solely depend on the GPS coordinates. So some of the cars may be having a LiDAR system for detection and the obstacle avoidance. And if the LiDAR is compromised, so some of these functionalities may be like the distance to collisions may be modified, or if the detection is not happening as expected, and those kind of things may happen if this lidar uh, is attacked by any kind of malwares or the hackers or bugs. So we have commonly categorized the cyber attacks on different wireless communication, and these attacks are mainly happening in any kind of wireless communication for these three perspectives. Whether they need to break the confidentiality, either they need to break the integrity of your system, and also they can try to make your system available to the entire industrial networks. See, it comes under the availability. So this CAA is the main objective of making some cyber attacks on wireless communication. So if your target is on vehicle, you have a different setup of CAA, and if your target is on infrastructure, or if your target is on wireless network, so based on this communication setup and different objects and different targets, this CAA has been framed up. So most of this been will be merged together in different angulations. But of course, all these can be categorized based on target, based on vulnerability, and based on the information extraction from different applications. So likewise, this is again a different comparison of cyber attacks where it involves software analysis of different encoder platforms. It will be having some ransomware attack. It also be having some password attacks, or it will be having a physical hacker available in the network, or it may be having some SQL injection, which may not be informed to the network service provider or the user itself. So let's say if you are sending a message to another person in WhatsApp, recently there is a news like there is a pink WhatsApp. So if you are trying to install the pink WhatsApp due to its fancy features, then your actual WhatsApp messages will be messed up. So these data will be open from the pink WhatsApp, and it will be anyone who is using this pink WhatsApp, their data will be much more vulnerable. So this kind of cyber attacks can be possible when you are using embedded devices that is equipped with network service providers and also having a lot of data generation sensors inside it. So our objective is like how your data are applied with the machine learning algorithms to train those models, and how your AI is going to take some decisions based on the trained values and features extracted from this training. So, like I said, our main objective is to focus more on autonomous vehicles, and we have vehicle adopt network, and it also has some infrastructure security for cyber threat models. And while we are performing some security analysis inside the networks, we just go through these 9 functions first. Then we will try to test it on the actual platforms. We just see whether there is a broadcast tampering is there, whether your system is secured with all the sensors available without any denial of service. And if your vehicle is moving at a speed of 20 miles per hour, then at a range of 1 kilometer, how you are going to track these things? If there is a if you're unable to track your network, or if any kind of vulnerability happening during your tracking, then what is the countermeasures your system is going to have while the system is on road? Likewise, there are different understanding perspectives for routing and cyber attack, traffic analysis, jamming, and GPS spoofing. Yeah, of course, a lot of different cyber threat models are available based on the applications, and these are some of the primitive cyber threat models we just focus while we are framing our simulation model for autonomous vehicles. And likewise, I said a lot of loads and loads of cyber threat models available for an autonomous vehicle. And just imagine all these will be all these functionalities will be there in the systematic sensor-based network. And just imagine these sensors alone will be generating the data whenever they face any kind of functional dysfunctions. So these data need to be processed properly, analyzed, trained, and then it should be transferred to the application, and this application should perform based on this data. So that this is very hard job, and you just need to understand the system first and provide some countermeasures for your attack scenarios. So let's come to the infrastructure part. Till now, we are just seeing about the in-vehicular network, whatever happening inside your system without any outside world interruption, or whatever happening inside your network connected components and without the need of any additional support from external world. Let's say if I have a vehicle connection with infrastructure V2I, if a vehicle connection with the device V2D, if a vehicle to vehicle is communicating to each other, it comes under V2V. Then vehicle to networks, we have a different perspective of V2N. So once your system is made available or it's getting connected to the external support systems, then there are a lot of additional possibilities for your system to be vulnerable, right? So if there is a hacker is hacking the infrastructure, then via the infrastructure he can able to uh, he can come inside your system and he can perform any actions he desires. So this is how the setup works. So you just need to ensure what kind of infrastructure you are going to connect with your vehicle and if it's secured or not, and what kind of security patches this infrastructure is having up, and what if there is a vulnerability in the infrastructure, how your system is going to predict and protect its network. So this is the entire orchestration of understanding when you try to connect your system with vehicle to infrastructure, whatever the external resources you use for the performance improvement of your system. So, like I said, once you frame your system with respect to different analysis, then you just need to understand what kind of attack areas you can expect and what kind of attack classifications you can categorize this attack area. So basically, we have categorized the attack types into 6 categories, and we have classified the components which is much more vulnerable to these attacks into different sections. Your smartphones and wireless communications are much more feasibly accessible by the hacker network. And likewise, our in-vehicle sensors are coming with malware attacks. It can be of the software itself or software patch, or it can be of the actual hardware itself. It's up to the diagnostic system to understand what kind of capability or what kind of inability these sensors are providing now. So this is the actual understanding of your system before you try to deploy and test it in the actual environment. In our case, we just need to see and understand if your system is performing as expected. Then we just need to understand if that is the actual expectations provided from these different components installed inside the system based on the software specifications and also the hardware specifications. Then we have some confidence on deploying it in the real time. If at all, if there is a mismatch between different specifications, or if there is a malfunction happening between command execution or communication between different ECUs inside your network, then you just need to go and analyze this thing, train your model once again, starting from scratch, then understand the data and just go and compare the data obtained during the vulnerability and right now. Then having a comparison in hand, you just go and test trials. This is the sequential steps usually we follow, or not only us, we just whatever whoever works on cybersecurity things or the AI and machine learning algorithms. This is the sequential steps everyone is going to follow, irrespective of the application in the real time world. So, what if the system is attacked from any kind of networks? So the potential consequences can be of driving failure, vehicle theft, collision, and I am speaking about the autonomous vehicle perspective alone here. And since your system includes lot of sensors, I mean smart sensors equipped with some network connectivity, these are some of the potential consequences we can expect from cyber attacks. So as a statistical model, like I mentioned one before, this is a major cyber attack happened in 2017 and 2018, and most of the attack surfaces and attack vectors uses malwares as one of the entry points, and some may happen due to web-based attacks once you try to connect it with your local host or to the unauthorized network locations. Then the third category comes with the denial of services. So on the right side, you can see what kind of consequences happen because of these cyber attacks in the US. So almost information loss is playing a major role in this kind of cyber attack. And due to this information loss, US revenue has lost about 5.9 million. So this is way back. It is 2018 statistical model. So as a this is the primitive model where you can have an idea of what is going to happen if the same scenario is happening when your network connected devices are getting are increasing day by day. So as per the statistical model, you can expect 75 billions of network connected devices are going to be available in an open world by 2025. So this attack scenarios can also happen in the same range. It can be a linear perspective where you can also expect this kind of uh, uh, diversion is happening from cyber attacks and cyber modeling. So companies are investing huge amount of money to ensure their system is much more secure from any kind of vulnerabilities. It can be as the category shows, malware is one of the primary thing happening inside their system. So companies will be focusing more on malware attacks. It doesn't mean most of the companies are not focusing on botnets, but they are equally competent. But the users or the hackers are relying more on malware than the botnets because its functionality and the user experience or the spoofing principles or spoofing primitives of botnet is not that much more familiar with malware. So that is the reason why most of the people or most of the hackers prefer malware rather than going with botnets. So this is a OSI layer architecture, and you will be having 7 layers, and you will be seeing of vehicular protocols available for these 7 layers and what these 7 layers can perform along with the threat models and countermeasures. So if you are concentrating more on the application layer, you just need to focus more on most protocol, and this protocol will help you to understand and your system based on synchronization and disruption attacks. It helps to validate your system based on synchronization, and it helps to provide some countermeasures in terms of vehicular gateway firewalls. Likewise, you will be having some network layer, and it will be having SAP connectivity, or it will be providing some MAC connection code, because most of the things most of the network service providers available in Indian colleges, you will be going to your network service support team or IT support infrastructure team where you will be configuring your laptops, and the Wi-Fi network available in your campuses will be uh, that can be utilized by you once you configure your laptop. So in that case, your laptop network will be connected securely into your central server. So likewise, you are providing some security information and providing some additional safety measures for your system. So likewise, different OSA layers have their own threat models and also have their own countermeasures. But these countermeasures are very much limited, and lot of other countermeasures and lot of loads and loads of other threat models available for different OSA layers. And also, this vehicular protocol is not limited. You can try with LIN and FlexiDave are the most in network layer, and also CAN, FlexiDave, Bluetooth or physical layer connectivity. And this vehicular protocols are also depends on the user experience and user's interest. So now the second topic of our discussion is application areas of AI. So till now, we just see what this big data, cybersecurity, and what kind of expectations you can do, or what kind of application-centric analysis you can provide for protecting your system. So now we are going to see about the recent trends of AI applications and how these AI applications are classified based on different services it provides, and what kind of AIs are available in the public sector. So recent trends of AI application includes at the bottom you can see a device-based classification and hybrid classification and cloud-based classification. And on the left side you can see different retail markets or different infrastructure or application-centric deliverable systems. If you're focusing more on uh, transportation infrastructure, then the device-based system includes autonomous vehicles. Then hybrid solution is uh, connecting your autonomous vehicles with the grid control. Then once you try to connect it with the hybrid solution, then obviously you will be able to connect it with the cloud-based networks. Similar way, depends on the application's perspective, whether you choose the device-based network or the hybrid solution or cloud-based solutions. It's again the user understandings and the user's capacity and the user infrastructure to understand these models can be deployed into their system. So in India now the medical medicine stockages or the availability of beds or the oxygen cylinders are very much limited. So in that case, we can use the AI algorithm to understand in this zone the requirement is very high and what kind of supply demand management we can perform with the industry as well as the suppliers, and also depends on the hospital capacity and the number of patients intake. These resources can be distributed effectively. So in that case, AI applications can bring lot of informations from finding the medicine, ambulances, oxygen cylinders, and the availability of beds in different hospitals. And these are some of the data-centric AI application scenarios where you can relate it with the medical and healthcare. Similar way, you can try to bring up these things with different applications like consumer or retail platforms and energy sector, and also oil and gas and agriculture. And these are some of the basic primitive applications. Wherever you go, you just see whether you require a device itself, or it can be combined with different end-to-end devices or cloud. So recent trends of AI applications includes, as I said, ANI and AGI is readily available, and we are just focusing on ASI, super intelligence model. But the technology-oriented descriptive analysis includes machine learning and deep learning as the topmost priority, where all your data will be modeled, mapped, trained. Then, based on these training values, your insights will be available for the users. And likewise, once you go with some latency issues or some latency analysis of different applications, then you just need to see whether you require AI with cloud or IoT with cloud or IoT cloud with edge. This is a an application centric classification of different trends available for this AI applications. So this is the basic productivity model of AI, where it revolves around cost, energy, and customer experience. So once your process is completely automated, and you will have an insight of your process, and you also try to understand your system based on its behavior, based on its performance, based on its application execution. So once you have these data, and these data can be mapped with cost, energy, and also customer experience. So all these things, you just need to have these criteria in hand and try to understand your system based on your requirement. So once your requirement are satisfied, then you just go to next step. If it is not satisfied, then you just try to model this data once again, train your system and try to feed the same trained values into your system and understand whether the trained value is performing much more better than the already available data. So I have given few of the references where I have taken these slides and where I have classified this file. And once you have this idea, you can go through these papers and you will have more insights on how these people are classifying these AI applications and what kind of experiences they faced while trying to model these AI applications. So likewise, implementation of AI in AI and AGI in the current scenario includes a lot of software development platforms. As you know, right, you just simply need to say, "Okay, Google," or "Hey, Alexa," "Hey, Siri," and uh, there will be a ready-made assistant for you to be to ensure that you never miss any of the scheduled things in your day-to-day life. Similar way, different network service providers, different application domains or different industries are having their own time frame agenda to understand and to bring up a best outcome from their models. So this is the recent trend in different AI applications. You can see developer side, you can see different AI enablers, and these AI enablers are modeled with the different application areas, and it can be of healthcare, IoT, Industry 4.0, cybersecurity, as I showed, and all these enablers are software service can be of software service providers, or it can be of network service providers, or it can be a basic developer itself. So all these people were clubbed together and based on a particular applications they'll be working on. So this is the basic overview of how these AI services and AI platforms are clubbed together. Once you go with different application centric user analysis things, there are a lot of cloud services, as you know. Amazon Web Services are there, Google Cloud is there, and different Microsoft Azure is there. Different cloud service providers were there, and based on your requirement and your understanding of applications, you just go and see which is the best service provider for your application. If I say autonomous vehicle, I can go and see AWS or a lot of Chinese cloud service providers available who are all providing a lot of additional safety and security measures while I use cloud services. Alibaba Cloud is there, and a lot of cloud services providers were spread all over the world. And their distinct feature is provide some additional safety and security patches for your network. So that's how they are standing and they are competing each other in the market. So AI services includes uh, here they have here I have provided only with the Amazon Web Services, and you can see in the framework or in the infrastructure or the platform of services, you can have versatile information of different application centric things provided from Amazon. Or you can also check with different AI enablers, how these AI enablers are getting merged with different application scenarios and how they are used in real-time applications. Let's say if I am using a Uber app or Ola app, and there will be an AI enabler who is working on 24 by 7 in the mobile application. And based on your requirement, you will be giving your distance and you are selecting what type of uh, car you require and whether you require to travel alone or you can share with different passengers. And all these programs are being trained and modeled instantly using these AI enablers. And these enablers will be configuring your system and just immediately transferring the output command to the uh, Uber server. And Uber server will be mapping that information with the next nearest uh, GPS coordinates of the car. So once the receiver receives this thing, he will accept and he will be transported to different your assigned place. Such a way, different applications have their own framework and has their own service providers for enabling or effectively utilizing their services. This is an example of AWS. And similar way you can have with Google platforms, and you can have for different other platforms like Alibaba and everything. So this is a great comparison of how the top AI starts. AI tech giants, I mean, tech giants are working on with AI. So you can see Google stands at the top, and the Salesforce are getting their hands in AI, and the transformation is happening over a period gradually from time to time. So you can see 2010, 2012, there is no one in the AI field, and only the Siri. Then all of a sudden, Google uh, came into the picture, and they started with Clever Sense, and now they are going with Banter. And now it's a statistic from 2018, but it is 2021 where these companies are going way ahead of what they have planned already. So Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, all these tech giants relying completely on AI for their effective outcome of different future extraction and different application centric customer experiences. So you just need to see and understand what kind of effective input you require from the application you choose. And in either ways, you just need to provide some authorization and for this application service providers to use your information so that the required outcome will be obtained from both the ends. So this is some of the concept that is happening in Korea. Most of the projects involves AI. Either it can be of robotics, it can be of autonomous vehicles, even finance also they are using AI. So this is an application. This is an area where there is no restrictions for applications. Yes, that is the actual thing. There is no restrictions for applications when you try to use AI. Whenever you have data, whenever you have some modules, you go and test your data. And once the data is obtained, once you try to understand your data, obviously the application can be of anything. It's not limited to any kind of application. So this is an application, as I mentioned, it is also based on Korea, and this is about a knowledge-based system where there will be a system of different distribution system where at one end it will be having an application perspective, at other end the user as well as the consumer who are going to use that application. Like I mentioned, sequential steps will be there, set of rules will be there, lot of criterias will be there. So that based on your user experience and the user inputs, these criterias and these parameters will come into place and analyze this data. And then it tries to understand the user intention. Then based on this user intention and the number of answers received from the same kind of consumers, it will be able to provide the best suitable answer for your query. So then finally, if the query is accepted by the user, it will be assigning to that particular application. So everything is mapped, modeled, and analyzed in a sequential way. If any of these things is not there, then obviously the system is going to fail, and the expected outcome will not be there in the system. So this is a system developed by Saltlux, a company in Korea, and they are trying to build up a business model for autonomous vehicles and also different applications also they have in hand. And all this data flow is sequential, and this entire system is standalone. You just no need of any manual intervention or testing skilled labor to be assisting this system. Once you try to open the app will give you all the information you require, and you just need to feed this information. Then app will automatically process all those functionalities, and based on the criteria which is preloaded in the system, and based on the different parameters it has for evaluating your data along with the criteria, it will be going to give you best possible solutions for that particular applications. So similar model or similar business cases were there with all kind of technology giants, and for their particular applications. This one is about the autonomous vehicles, autonomous vehicle collaborations. But if you are trying to go with the biological sciences or go with some healthcare applications, there can be an additional parameters or additional criteria. Or there will be an additional verification processes that depends on that particular applications. But the ultimate thing is everything is sequential, and it's about what kind of information you share and what kind of processing technique it uses for evaluating your data for giving you a best possible solution for utilizing their application. So this is about the dozen robotics service system, where there will be a robot. It will be it will be acting as a janitor in any kind of consumer forums. It can interact with the school kids. It can interact with the passengers available in the airport, or it can interact with the office staff. And this this robot system is installed to understand the customer's behavior and also understands the user-centric approaches, so that the data obtained from this robot will try to be modeled and trained to understand what kind of environment it is going to face, and based on that environment, this robot is going to be deployed. So it is a two-way process. In the beginning, it will be a clean slate, and based on your information, you are going to etch the slate, and based on the etching data, this robot is going to be trained. Then it will be a standalone system in that particular application. So the docent robotic service system, and this is very common thing once you try to deploy a self and standalone system anywhere else in the application system. So likewise, that is a complete robotic platform. Once you try to go with some medical imaging or medical perspectives, then we have different uh, criteria and different parameters. One such is developed by Uno Medical Systems, and they have image classification or image feature extraction schemes for X-rays. Instead of X-rays, you can go with this kind of image processing technique, where it has provided some uh, accuracy level which is very much uh, uh, higher than the procedures which is actually happening in the current today's medical world. So the technique and the processing methodology followed by these people are giving much more accuracy, are much more result oriented output in a short time than the traditional methods. So that's why how this is possible. They are just using the AI to train the system. So they'll be evaluating this data obtained from let's say n number of people, and they will be modeling these data. And based on these data and features extracted from these data, they are just feeding it up to their model, and their model is going to outperform the existing traditional method. And it is also been proved like 8% of readiness value and 40% of speed improvement is already been happening while using the UNO model uh, in place of actual traditional model in medical imaging process. And this is again a uh, a model which is developed by Samsung for testing their refrigerator. It is called Bixi, and it was already been there in the market. Most of our people are using this Bixi model of Samsung, where you can go and interact with your fridge. And if you say open the right door, it will open, and just try to set up the temperature. You just try to say this is hi Bixi, set the temperature to 23 degrees centigrade. Then automatically the AI system installed inside the network will be performing those actions. So similar way, in lot of our day-to-day activities are being performed, are being monitored, are being qualitatively evaluated by this AI system. So randomly, if you are saying like, if I am having an AI-enabled fan system, or AI-enabled air controller, or AI-enabled air conditioner, or AI-enabled washing machine, I just don't need to go there and say. I just simply tap my mobile phone and use their app and say, this is the thing I require, and just speed it up. Then obviously, the network service provider and the command execution console will try to execute that in their application. So this is a common diagram of how this AI and this together are combined, and what all the devices are getting involved in the process of cloud and AI. And at one end you can see cloud, and at the other end you will be seeing about the devices itself. And in the middle you can see different service providers and data communication exchange platforms and different analysis and things. And on the right side of the thing, you can also see benefits of using AI. It can help you to understand the behavior of your system, and also it provides some privacy protection and quick solution, and also it uses low power and low cost. So these are some of the generic things whoever develops some application. But once you get intense, once the data are flowing in n numbers, then you just need to provide some additional security and safety measures to safeguard your system. So there comes a real challenge once you try to deploy it with the real world. So these are some of the application areas of artificial intelligence, and like I said, most of these things are discussed here are with the Korean perspective, and you can also share this thing with different AI application databases, where one side of the thing you will be having different chatbots, and other side you will be having actual companies in who are all manufacturing, or who are all actively involved in developing the hardware system for supporting these chatbots. But in the middle, there will be a lot of AI enablers, lot of software service providers, software developers, and also many curated performance analysts also available in the market. So it is a diversified area of diversified pool of AI systems, and each of these application-centric functionalities are unique, and these things are being exchangeable to customer-centric approaches. So they will be generating and they will be developing a common framework of integrating your model with any kind of software and hardware platforms. Let's say if my mobile phone is compatible with iOS, it also can support any kind of applications that you're running on Android. Similar way, if you're having a network server which is running on Windows, then the consoles and the directories available in the Windows console can also be ported and utilized in any kind of Linux platforms or kind of Android platforms. So that kind of generosity and generic approaches are available with any of these AI-centric developers or AI-centric manufacturers. So that's why they are just able to withstand in the market. So we have this software developers for different applications like cybersecurity, educational purposes, healthcare, IoT, machine learning, and also biomedical engineering. And you also have a lot of provisions to enable big data analytics, and you can have the provisions to analyze and forecast the market availability or market intelligence. So likewise, you can also in India also, and in even in Tamil Nadu also, lot of app developers are coming up with the investment plans like investing in stock market or stock analysis, and those kind of things are also there. So all these things are happening in the front end, but once you try to understand the concept of how these things are actually performing in the real environment, then obviously you will be having this kind of overview picture of what is the actual happening with the software platform, what actually having in the hardware platforms, and how these together are merged with the trained values of ML or big data analytics. So all these things, they are all combined together and performing some different actual action performed with AI enabled platforms. So this is a public sector innovation proposed by OECD Observatory. There is again a public sector thing available in South Korea, and they have framed it with different directions like shaping down or the mission enhancement or adapted, or it can also expect some anticipatory innovation. So whatever you develop or whatever you design or whatever you actually face after deploying your application in a customer market, all these things you can provide it as an input to any of the upcoming or ongoing projects available with any of the manufacturers or any of the developers in the market. So these platforms will help these developers and manufacturers to provide some additional safety and security measures to those kind of vulnerabilities, to those kind of attacks, or to those kind of security issues or those kind of malware attacks. So you just need to provide provide your information to the local market, and there is a standard. There are a lot of standard policies for different manufacturers available in the same market who are all manufacturing same kind of equipments and tools for same kind of applications. And based on these policies and these referrals, these policymakers will try to bring up consolidated functionalities of this is what actually you're going to do as a countermeasure for any kind of for this kind of attack for this particular application. So let's say if my OS got crashed, so my immediate assumption will be like it can be of any malware or it can be of any hackers or it can be of any kind of observatory things available in the thing available with the OS. So obviously, I will go with the policymaker and understand the system defined functionalities and try to bring up with the same functionality into my system to recover my system. So this kind of procedural orchestration is available with this kind of policymakers, and it is mandatory for all the industries or all the software developers to follow this kind of policy to have a unique future of identification and unique, I mean, common platform for development and design. So, like I said, different policymakers for different industries available with public sector and also private sector, and also a combination of public and private. We call it as the hybrid sector. And so, different rules are being framed by government, and also the rules are being followed by different agencies. And all the residents and citizens need to follow this kind of tools and standardization to use their resources. So it's nothing like you can go anywhere and you can go any of the sites to serve any of your information required. So there will be an orchestrated functionalities where each and every citizen available in the country need to understand the concept and need to support these functionalities and use their applications. Let's say if I am trying to see a YouTube video that is age restricted one, then the policymaker need to understand what kind of viewingship this video is providing up, and then they will be evaluating your account credibility. Then if everything matches up, you will be allowed to view that video, or else you will be restricted to view that video, or the video itself will not be available in the YouTube. So this is how the policy functions while you are able to see and you're able to understand different applications which is open to the public. So this is the actual cycle of thing happening for the public valuation. There will be a data collection point, data generating point. There will be data storing point and processing point. Then there will be, after collection of data and processing, you will be sharing your data with different application specific developers or application specific websites. Then based on this data, these websites and application developers will try to put some models like machine learning models or federated learning, machine learning, unsupervised, supervised machine learning techniques or statistical analysis and some of the AI algorithms to bring up the best information out of those data. Similar way, this private sectors also be performing same sequential rules, but they have their own criteria to evaluate their model. So, like I said, you will be having an application area and their sector. And the transportation includes a lot of vehicles, parking, accident prevention, traffic management, image processing. And likewise, if you are trying to understand the smart city criteria, you can see about the energy efficient management, CCTV control, and also traffic management. Or you can also see infrastructure management being also been put there in smart city management. Likewise, you have the natural disaster also been there. You can also have the administrative services. It can also be boosted up using chatbots, or it can also be boosted up using customer service alarms. So likewise, depends on the application, these categories have been categorized, and understanding these areas to bring up the most effective outputs, you just need to understand this first. So practices being done in developed countries includes uh, different countries are since we have two uh, kind of countries, like one is developed country and one is developing country. Most of the developed countries, they have their infrastructure, have their support, and have their funds to bring up lots and lots of AI into their business models, AI into their applications, and AI for their customer benefits. So in this section, we are going to see about the practices followed in the developed countries, and especially in Korea. So once you open the data, there will be a gradual increase, and once there is a gradual increase in the data, there will be a data download and application development. And this all these policies will be there wherever the mapping is done, wherever the application is provided. So Korean government has formulated an open data strategy, and they have planned it for the uh, platform building. It's like developing something from scratch and utilizing these platforms for different pilot projects. And once this project has been done, they are just going to deploy and establish new products based on the outcomes obtained from this pilot projects. So you can go and always serve these projects and what kind of actual interesting projects they have planned in 2015, what's the exact status in 2016, and what's the outcome of this project right now in 2021. You can find all this information in these websites. So, since as you know, most of these slides and the functionalities discusses with Korea, we have these slides from a Korean professor where he have openly made it available to the AI developers and also the people who are working in cybersecurity to understand the projects and the things happening inside Korea. So I'm just going to brief you about the actual things, how this AI and big data are effectively being handled by this Korean government. So once you deploy this thing in a very organized way, there are also we face some limitations. Like say asset policy management is there, insufficient data or error in data collection, or the amount of users expected may not be sufficient from the data availability, or lack of awareness or expertise for the consumers who are using that particular applications. So basically, uh, if you are able to master the data, then obviously you can bring the best uh, data information out from those data. That's the actual thing. So let's say if you are not able to handle the smartphone, or if you are not able to install the particular application, or if you are not able to view the required details requested from the particular application, then obviously at the other side, this application may not be sufficiently enough to provide you the requested informations, right? So this is how the insufficient data will have their limitations in the application execution. So as an end user or the consumer of that particular tool or software or application, we just need to provide, or we just need to understand what actually this thing is about, and we just need to ensure our data is secured, and you just need to exchange your information with these functionalities. So this is a strategy and the task assignment based on different end user values and also the quality of data given obtained from different end users. So to make the data publicly available, we just need to ensure a re-raising of public data based on different criteria, which may not be sufficient for the actual performance. So you just need to qualitatively improve the criteria. We just need to understand what kind of additional criteria or what kind of additional information you can ask from the consumers who are using that particular application. So in this way, you can able to strengthen the quality of public data. Similar way, if you are trying to focus more on data credibility, or if you are trying to focus more on data availability for different application-centric use cases, then you just need to understand and resolve those functionalities from this consumer perspective. So you can try to increase a lot of public participation, or you can try to give more kind of promotional offers or more kind of information exchange benefits for the consumers to use your platform more and more. So that once your data starts flowing, then obviously it can match up the criteria whatever you have planned for utilizing your applications. So in this way, you can have a lot of initiatives, like you just need to have the specific administrative team to understand, to perform, to monitor this data flow. And also there will be a extensive R&D team to bring up the maximum from these data. So likewise, if you have an action plan one, this is about an action plan. It's nothing but action plan one. It's more or less closely relating with the social value generation. It will be having an application that is more commonly being used for improving the social status or social welfare or the health benefits or environment. So once you do all these functionalities, all this data will be used for the consumer benefits. So let's say if there is no CCTV in your area, and if you are trying to utilize the CCTV functionalities for different applications, then you just need to go and approach a CCTV service provider using their application. So the CCTV service provider will be mapping up with all the CCTV cameras in particular location and trying to utilize those data. Likewise, if you are trying to model the data based on analytics obtained from different applications used from different time to time, then it is again being used for the customer benefits. It's like again be benefiting the consumer usages and also being used for effective handling of such kind of environment and such kind of scenarios in future. That's why collaborative usages and cooperative support from the consumer is much more essential while you are utilizing a common public platform for effective environment benefits. And this is again plan 2. It can be a key action plan where it uses CCTV cameras for public administration, for information exchange, or for promotional purposes. You can use this data for projecting the traffic management in your network, or it can use this tool for understanding the consumer behaviors in your area, or it can also helps you to understand what kind of expectations the consumers available in that particular area is always looking for. Either it can be of market strategies, or it can be of health measures, or it can be of garbage disposal, or it can be of theft management, whatever. So these data can be orchestrated based on the application and based on the public usages. So on an overview, this is a plan 3 where a lot of industrial environment comes into picture. So you'll be having an open data forum where both the public and private information will be confidentially shared between different agencies, different authorized agencies from the government, and they will be bringing up an effective utilization of those data for consumer benefits. Let's say if there is a smart city project, so who are all the people we can expect for this project, and uh, what kind of facilities we can expect from this smart city based on the consumer requirements. Some of the locality people, they don't want swimming pool. They may instead they require an exercise gym, or they may require a football ground or kind of gaming and sporting environment. So based on the customer centric preferences and also based on the data accumulated from these different smart systems, government will be able to share these informations with these people so that they can bring up a better smart city project, which is definitely been beneficial to the dwelling agents like consumers or the users. So this is again a vision and mission of using the data and AI. As I said, there should be a balance between the amount of data accumulated or data obtained from the devices, and also there should be a proper AI algorithm to process those data to bring up the best outcome from these data. So as I said, there is a strategy where you can see convergence of both data and AI, and this convergence will be obeyed with the policies formulated by different governments, different policymakers, or different agencies involved in such kind of design and development. So this is an overall plan for effectively handling the data and AI together, and it tries to bring up most of the smart technologies involved in the process of data generation, modeling, application-oriented task executions, and also AI. So you can consider the same model for any of the applications. If you are trying to utilize smart taxis, or if you are trying to utilize the energy sector, or if you are applying this smart objective for healthcare benefits or kind of transportation or agriculture, whatever the industrial perspective or the application one, this is the actual strategy we are going to follow, whatever the application you choose. So, like I said, there will be a data flow from public data, and also there should be a private data. Both these data will be engineered for better outcome. So it can be effectively being utilized for industry purposes, or it can be effectively handled by the research and development team for AI purposes. So it's again a customer beneficial factors. You just need to extract the qualitative data for knowledge analysis, and it also been trained using different algorithms for future extraction and the criteria formulation. And based on the future extraction and criteria formulations, this data can be used for the betterment of consumers who are all using it. It can be of social benefits, it can be of health benefits, it can be of environment benefits. So based on these data alone, these industries and R&D people will be bringing up their newly available, new designs, new requirements, and new ideologies. This is the actual setup actually happening while combining the public and private data. And this is the setup of plan that is actually happening in 2019. And right now we are in 2021, and a lot of things have been improvised where you can have a lot of collaborators for R&D in AI. And now most of the people are transforming their system to edge computing from cloud computing. And we also have different machine-to-machine communication, edge-to-edge device communication, and we also have a different security perspective of understanding different attack scenarios for autonomous vehicles. The quality of data generated from different devices are getting improved, and yeah, a lot of things have been upgraded from the one which you are seeing right now. And this is an overview of building an AI industry infrastructure where you will be having a software platform, and it also must be having some hardware platforms. Then both are combined together and generating some data platforms. So these data platforms are assisted by standardization, material information, and personal information. So this is a bottom-up approach of how these plans have been executed over a period of time by involving machine learning, big data, and AI. So of course, uh, this setup will also include a lot of IoT platforms where this data are collected from smart sensors that is being installed at different industries, different locations, or different devices. So it also includes IoT in their data collection processes. So this is again a primitive understanding of how this data management is happening between knowledge-oriented analysis as well as the device-oriented performance issues. So, like I said in the previous stages, we have a security model, and we also have some data analysis model for betterment of different user experiences. So, likewise, now we are going to see what is the actual expectations provided from business modeling as well as the application modeling when you try to utilize some commonly used platforms by different consumer ends. Most of the people will be using the public transportation, and most of the people are having their own customized vehicular networks for their transportation or day-to-day life. And obviously, everyone relies more on environment, and some of the people will be using the logistic functions for their use cases. So all these data will be clubbed together and categorized based on different data centers. Let's say data centers involves, uh, as shown in the example, you can see there is a data center exclusively for road and traffic management. There can be a exclusive data center for forecasting systems and parcel management. Let's say, obviously, we won't be using this kind of data centers all the time, but what are the information stored in these systems will be effectively be handled in this circulation, where there will be a connection point, there will be a learning point, there will be an analysis and distribution point, and all these functionalities will be available with all these stages of big data platforms. So this is how the AI and big data are getting converged together. And this is a simple example of Dr. Answer is a database of various medical data. And if you are in India also, we have hospitals like Dr. Reddy's, Apollo Hospital, and a few of them are having their own chatbots for using their applications, where you can find information about different health related information. And also you can schedule your appointment with the doctors using their app. And this is how the setup works. And Dr. Answer is a database where you are going to see and analyze different it also includes appointment booking, medical practices, or medicine purchases, and a lot of information. So likewise, different application specific developer apps have their own user interfaces, where it depends on the user experience and the user information. The effectiveness of information exchange between the app and the user is much more reliable. So on a whole, you just require a reliable, robust, and flexible user experience while using the consumer-based applications. So this is an overall futuristic diagram of how this big data, AI, and wireless communications can be clubbed together. And this is a very basic and primitive stages of how this all clubbed together. And you can also go and see the references cited in the paper, and you can have a lot of additional information on why these things are combined together and how these things are being performing together, and what kind of data we can expect from wireless communication, AR, VR, and how the data obtained from intelligent robots can be used for drone operations, and what kind of machine learning algorithms they use for performing these operations for training and analysis. And a lot of these very informative insights can be obtained from this paper. You can have a look of this informative paper where you can have a brief idea about next generation wireless communications, edge computing, big data analysis, and everything is focused towards a particular application. Keep that in mind. You have an application. You should have a clear application of why you choose this technology for your application. What kind of betterment is going to provide or it is going to bring for your application. That's why then you should go and utilize that particular technology. So this is again a use case of AI and big data, where the usage of vegetables and the protection of vegetables based on rainfall in different locations in and around Korea is being trajected, and based on the meteorological data, this image has been formulated. So you can see in a period of 5 to 12 months, you can there is a rainfall range of different scenarios, and based on that rainfall, 95.2% of onion is being cultivated, and based on the particular rainfall in the particular region, there can be an expectation of 69.5% of chili or michi available in that particular zone. So likewise, depends upon the application and depends upon the user cases. This AI and big data have been effectively being handled. So in this case, we are using this data for weather forecasting, and in on the other side, we have used this data for agriculture and also the cultivation purposes. We have categorized and analyzed these two different domains together using AI and big data, and we have formulated this user perspective of understanding what can you expect or what kind of cultivation you can expect in the forecasted way. So this kind of projections and predictions we can expect by using big data and AI for effective utilization and consumer benefits. This is a smart city hub. You will be having smart city services, and as I said, based on the environment and based on the user perspective, these smart city services can be modified. And of course, it can be modified, but the basic underlying step, like it should be having some infrastructure that includes a cloud setup, or it includes some infrastructure support, or it includes some and data management schemes and the service provider schemes. So the basic underlying concept is a similar one, but depends upon the user's understanding and the user's requirements. There can be a slight modifications among these inputs shown in this figure. So we can also have a look of what actually been there in the system, and having these references in hand, and why they have proposed this kind of setup for this kind of city hub. And it also depends upon what kind of infrastructure being proposed by the government, and also it includes policies framed by the standards and infrastructure given by the government. So it not only relies completely on the user's understanding and user's requirement, but also it has an equivalent importance in utilizing the policies framed by the government. So it's again an AI in crime investigation in South Korea, and of course 18 million cryptocurrency Ponzi scheme is in there. So use cases are enormous while you use AI and big data, and depends upon the application specifications. You just need to understand what actually you require from your system. So as an autonomous vehicle design, we just need to see whether if a particular vulnerability is happening inside your network, what kind of decision your system need to take, or if the system is vulnerable to this kind of attack, what kind of countermeasures your system can provide for that particular vulnerability, so that it can ensure the system is still intact and safe from any kind of external breaches. Since everything is in real time, even a fraction of instances or fraction of diversions in the actual performance will completely alter the performance of the system. So let's say if the brake should be applied if the vehicle is moving at 80 kilometer speed, if a brake should be applied gradually. What if the braking system got failed because of some malware? If the vehicle reaches 80 kilometers per hour, if the brake need to be pressed gradually, instead of pressing it in the gradual manner, if it is pressed and all of a sudden, then obviously it will be lead to fatality, or it will lead to an accident. So in such way, your system is not that much being trained to address this kind of eventualities while it is running in the real time. So it's just about the understanding of your model and understanding of the training schemes you provide for your system. So this is how the system performs when you try to bring up more and more information on testing and analysis. That's why we take a lot of time in developing some security schemes and testing those security schemes based on different vulnerabilities rather than designing the actual environment. So the actual environment can include any of the functionalities or any of the technologies at any point of time. But the real challenge in developing this design includes is by including the security schemes required for different vulnerabilities. So the countermeasures you provide for your system must ensure this kind of vulnerability should never happen in any of the time once the system is fully functional and operating in real time. So this is how the system should work, and the decision making model should be given to the scheme of AI operations performed by different sensors in the schemes. So you can also have an open look of how this scheme of things are being performed by AI in a criminal investigation by having a look of this URL. And lots and lots of recent publications were there from IEEE elsewhere, and even a lot of teams in NTU is performing a great research in autonomous vehicles, energy sectors, and yeah, of course, we have a expert team of people working here, and even we have a lot of professors working globally. Also, we know few of the research labs in and around Germany, Russia are doing a great quality work in understanding and bringing big data and AI in developing some AI-enabled autonomous cars. So, as I said, once you go with the application-specific analysis, you just need to provide more weightage on security. So, this is about the two-way functionalities of AI and SIEM. We have a machine learning scheme and cybersecurity. It also includes uh, big data. It also includes security infrastructure, and also it has a provision for security and safety analysis of what actually required for the system. Before starting the analysis and modeling, you just need to understand what's the actual requirement for your system. Based on the particular requirement, you're going to choose the algorithm. So, based on the algorithm, you just formulate and frame what kind of vulnerabilities this algorithm can protect your system from. So, this is the two-way communication or bidirectional full duplex communication between AI algorithm and devices. So, devices will be generating data all the time, and the AI algorithm will be performing different complex operations all the time. So obviously, both these things are clubbed together and combined together for the vehicle operation. So these are some of the key implications of regulatory policies and privacy governance. And of course, uh, the data should not be used as a raw data. It should be processed and utilized then. Since there is, if you use the raw data, it can mislead it can have chances of misleading your model. So it can have some errors or any third party vendor or third party spoofing attacks happening during your data transfer or during your communication or connection exchanges. Then data can be tampered or data can be spoofed or data can have its own errors. So it is not advisable for any of the developers to use raw data as its only reliable source. So you just need to process the data, and you just need to provide additional metrics to evaluate the data before using it into your actual system. So this is one of the most common data regulatory and privacy governance we use for ensuring your uh, data is intact without any kind of fault or any kind of errors. So then comes the AI ethics and policy. You will be having some based on the government policy and based on the consumer usages and preventions. Each government have their own AI ethics and policies. Some of the countries like few of the countries in the Europe or few of the countries in a few of the Asian countries, they don't allow human trials. They don't allow human trials if the accuracy rate of getting the actual result is above 85%. Yeah. So if the accuracy level is more than 85% alone, they can allow the AI policies to have live human trials. Until and unless it is not open to anyone, and such kind of different policies were being given and what was being framed by different governments for their betterment. And also, it is in either ways, it helps for the AI community to also develop such a robust and flexible system before they try to deploy it in the actual environment, because once the system is fully functional and if it is completely available in the environment, anything may happen at the if an attack is happening, or if there is an unknown vulnerability which the model has not been trained. So there can be a fatality, there can be a mortality, or there can be any kind of accident. So these kind of predictions and protections need to be available for your AI system. In such a way, the effective usage of data should be modeled, and effective countermeasures should be provided for any kind of vulnerabilities. So these are all some of the user-centric and data-centric approaches we follow while you use AI and machine learning for decision making in different applications. And some of these applications may require real-time data, and most of these applications requires processed data. And the common parameter for all these data is about the criteria and the parameters they key in for extracting the features from these data. So let's say if I am having an autonomous vehicle, so I have formulated n number of vulnerabilities, and also I have given the countermeasures for these kind of vulnerabilities. Our system need to ensure this is the actual thing we require if such a vulnerability is available into your network. Then obviously the vehicle countermeasure will try to avoid or try to overcome this kind of attack. Similar way, each of the applications can be of smart grid, or it can be of healthcare, it can be of transportation, it can be of energy. Each of these models will have their own vulnerabilities as well as their own countermeasures, so that these people need to understand what kind of countermeasures you can give for any kind of vulnerabilities in your system without affecting the actual operation of the particular applications. So for this, we have different regulatory performances, different ethics policies, and different uh, regulatory benefits from consumers, as well as regulatory usages, regulatory policies from the government. So the overall scheme includes different functionalities and different operational things to meet up. So for this, we have diversified technologies like AI, big data, IoT, ML for making the user experience and also the application specific data inputs and data exports much more flexible, and it tries to bring both the ends to meet together. So, just up, I've just come up with the last question of having this thing, and that's up I wind up with the question and answers. And if you have any questions in this one, just shoot it up, and I can ready to answer it up.
Sir, there are two questions.
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
hear me? I
Yes,
have
yes, I can.
posted in the private chat.
Okay, so randomness in the AI comes with the data analysis, or it again comes with the model you choose. Because in AI perspective, you just require to train your model, and you try to understand what kind of uh, things you infer from the information available from the data. So we have different randomness models for different AI perspectives. Let's say if you're going with the biological sciences, you have a lot and lot of mutation procedures available, and different mutation procedures will have their own pros and cons. let's say if okay, so you are asking about Apache Spark. Okay, it's again a cloud-based analysis system where you can have the qualitative evaluation of different data, even if the data are not well organized. So, if you are having a raw data system and the system needs to improvise in different applications perspective, then you can try to include the Apache Spark into your system where it can help you to train your model for understanding what actually you can bring up from those data. But Apache Spark, you cannot go straight away without any data analysis or modeling. It requires a trained scheme of analysis part, and it also requires data that is much more free from any of the errors. Okay. So, as I said, a closed domain system includes, let's say, if I have a vehicular network, uh, closed domain system includes only the vehicle. It's about the in-vehicular networks. It's about the things and devices available only within the vehicle. It can have a different sensors, it can have a different controllers, different actuators, different electronic controller units, and all these operations and performance will be shared, and the data can be exchanged between the vehicle alone. And for the vehicle alone, we will be performing those 8 steps. That you can be collecting data, we can able to process those data, and from the processed outcome, some operations will be performed by different ECUs. Similar way, if there is an open domain vulnerability, sorry, if there is a vulnerability in the closed domain, then it is easy for the developer to go search only within the network and understand if the performance provided by the particular application is not derived from the particular application or not. So, in such a way, the limitations of utilizing the closed system vulnerability assessment is much more lesser than the one which is already available in the open network, where you will be having lot of additional support environment. It can be of additional software service providers. It can have an additional hardware service providers or an infrastructure, or it can also have data that needs to be received from any external resources. Let's say if I am going to pay the toll ticketing, or if I am trying to pay the parking charges, then I just need to make my environment to be available for infrastructure where it will have its own software service provider, and this software service provider can also have its own vulnerability. So if I'm trying to pay the parking charges using their service providers, then you are going to make your system open by using their network. In such a way, this closed loop vulnerability or the closed domain vulnerability is very much lesser when you compare with the open domain vulnerability, where you will be having a lot of other players to be available in your environment while you're utilizing your particular applications. This is a basic layman example of how you are going to utilize the closed domain vulnerability assessment and also the open domain vulnerability assessment. If the vulnerability is happening between the closed loop and the open loop, the primitive schemes and the criteria for understanding the system in the closed loop is very much lesser compared to the open environment, open domain. Because a lot of other parties, in addition to the in-vehicular network, is already been there in the system. So you just need to compare this thing in overview perspective and understand how this vulnerability need to be addressed once you try to deploy it in the actual environment.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I think that's about the comments. Um, shall we conclude, sir? Yes.
Yeah, sure, ma'am. If
Okay.
there is no more
Yeah.
to say, I can.
Okay. Okay, I sincerely thank you for all your efforts and time you've given to us. And so this webinar was arranged exclusively for AI core students. So around 1,600 students have taken the AI core. So they've all listening to you. So I really appreciate, and you have thrown thrown light on multi-dimensional aspect of AI. I really appreciate on behalf of our SRM fraternity. I thank I thank you for your efforts and mainly for your patience in explaining all the concepts for the past 2 hours you've been with us. Thank you so much, sir. We'll get back to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. I once again thank the management for providing me this opportunity to share few of the insights what I learned from the AI industries and different people around the world. And of course, I hope this information will be quite useful in their day-to-day aspects of, and it can help them to trigger few of the things towards AI projects. And if they require any kind of help in developing an AI models or machine learning models, and if they have any big data analysis schemes, and if they require my help in doing all those things, I'll be happy to help them as well, and I can share the details as well with you.
Sure, sir. I'll definitely pass on to them. One last question from my side. So, how do you think our students can get into Nanyang Technological University and through AI? What is the prospects? So, if you could share that, be really useful for them.
So if the basic ideology is this: when you have actual talent of doing something in AI, try to build up more and more models on application perspective. Because whenever you develop something with respect to AI, we just need to focus on what's the actual application and what kind of betterment it is bringing to the society. So if people are really interested in doing a project on AI, they need to understand what kind of applications they are focusing on. So we have in NTU we have versatile labs, and we have different domains of people working in different projects in AI. Some may be having lots of experience in network security, autonomous vehicles, energy sector, healthcare. So it's about the students. They need to understand, try to bring up their model. Their uniqueness should be available in the particular model. Either it can be any of the application scenarios. So there are a lot of online platforms like GitHub, and repositories includes Alibaba Cloud, and lot of repositories also there. So try to make the students to bring up their model, publish those in those repositories, and those repositories will play a great role. So there are a lot of online platforms, social medias like LinkedIn, professional platforms. They can share their design and development to the open world. And if they are really interested in doing those things, and if they are capable of doing such a kind of good work, and they can try to bring up some good publications based on their design. So these categories and these criteria will have an additive weightage in their resume or in their profile. In addition to all those things, CGPA is also matters to enter into NTU, and of course, it should be fine. 8.5 and above should be a good thing to start in having all these publications and papers, and GitHub repository exclusively for the AI design. They can obviously grab a position in NTU, because the world's young minds and young talented minds are already available in the NTU, and a lot of people from Indian colleges, the IITs, and even from Tamil Nadu, a lot of colleges from PhD Tech, and a lot of people are from in India. Tamil Nadu are also working in inside NTU. But the channel is in this way. They should be meeting up these criteria, and they should be really capable of doing all those things.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. This will be a really useful information to our students. And we are also striving hard to align all our practical experiments to get aligned with the current day industry needs and also research needs. Thank you once again, sir. It was nice listening to you the past 2 hours. Thank you
Yeah,
so
thank you
much.
so
Thank
much.
you,
Thank you so
students.
much.
Thank you,
Yeah, thank you.
students and
Stay
faculty for
safe in
listening.
stay safe
Thank
in
you.
COVID situation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you too, sir. Take care. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Bye.
Bye.